Hi, this is Susan from Susan B. Cards. Today I'm going to show you some ways to use embossing folders. I have 3 of the new Tim Holtz Vault Collection embossing folders, and the first one is called Vault Flourish. So I just ran a piece of scrap paper through just to get an idea of what they really look like in person. This one I did on regular cardstock, and then I took a brown ink pad and just ran it over the top to get an idea. You can see that's very pretty. The next one I have is called Vault Lace, and I ran it through and then ran a ink pad over the top of that. You can see it's a pretty lace pattern, looks floral. And the last one that I have is called Vault Airmail. And this one's really cool. It has just different images that look like stamps and postage marks, something that you would see that has to do with mail. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. And again, all I did was emboss it and then run a brown ink pad over the top, just to get an idea of the image. For the first one, I'm going to use the Vault Flourish, and I'm going to start with a piece of ink blended paper. For this one I used ripe persimmon, picked raspberry, and fossilized amber for the 3 colors. And I just used the sticky mat to hold down my paper. This is 65-pound white cardstock, and I just used some blending brushes and blended each of these areas here. This piece of paper is the size of the embossing folder. I can always cut it down later if I choose to, but I wanted something that filled the entire folder. So rather than embossing this, I'm going to take some vellum, and I cut this so that it is 1 inch larger. So this embossing folder is 4.5 by 6.5. So I cut the paper 5.5 inches, and this is 6.5 inches. So it's just a little bit longer, but I'm going to trim that off later. I'll put all the information of what I'm using in the description of this video, or you can go to susanbcards.blogspot.com and I'll list everything with photos there. I embossed my paper, and this is what it looks like. It looks almost like there's white over the top, but it's just the way the paper, the vellum, looks when it's embossed. So this piece of paper I actually trimmed down, because even though my embossing folder is 4.5, it's actually 4.25 where the design is. So you can see I cut this paper down to 4.25 across, and it meets it matches up pretty well to this inked piece of paper now. So I'll be able to just score it right down here and here, and then fold the paper back. This paper is 6.5 inches long. I can go ahead and cut this down just a little bit on each side to make it 5.5, and then I'll have an A2 size card. I need to cut off 1/2 inch on each side. So this needs to go down to 6. And then on this side, since I want the color to be fairly even, I need to bring this down to 5.5 on this side. So cutting off 1/2 inch on each side. Okay, so that looks good. I just need to cut off some off the edge. It doesn't really matter which edge, because they both look good. So this paper just needs to come down to 5.5. And there you go. Now you have a piece of paper that matches the front and the back. I think that's pretty close. I might have to trim just a little bit more. So I'm going to get my scoring board, and I'll be right back. An easier way is just to go ahead and score it on the wrong side. So I'm just I'm not even really measuring this. I'm just going up to that edge. And then folding it over. See, it just ripped a little bit here. That's okay. I'll be able to glue that down in the back. So you don't want to score it too much just because it's vellum and not cardstock. You don't want to forget that. You know, it's a little bit more delicate. So I'll just put a little bit of glue there and fix that. Or you can trim it off if you want to. It's the same thing. And then I'm going to need to score it on this side, on this edge. So I'm flipping it over to the wrong side again. I put some red line tape here and here, and I'm just going to remove it. I just thought it was easier to apply it to the paper rather than the embossed vellum. Oops. Okay. And I'm just placing it onto the vellum. And there you go. So this is the area that is just coming up a little bit. I'm just putting a little bit of glue, not too much right there, just so it stays down. And I could just trim this part here. I have a little excess right here, and I could trim that part off if I want. I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to try to think of something to put on the front here. So that's it for this one. I think it came out pretty nice, and I'll show a finished card at the end. Don't forget, you don't always have to use white paper. Here I use this dark purple cardstock, and this is Salvage Patina Distress Oxide ink. Because it's Distress Oxide, it leaves that nice chalky finish, and you can see it on dark paper. So that's something different too. So for this one, I'm going to take this lighter color purple cardstock. You know, it's kind of like a lilac. And the Distress Oxide Villainous Potion, which is a dark purple. I'm going to ink the top of my embossing folder here. Just going in a couple different directions, just so I get good coverage. I'm going to line this up. I'm going to go ahead and put this through my Big Shot, and I'll be right back. So here's my paper. You can also do the opposite, where you ink the back of the embossing folder and run it through, so you'll get the ink pushed into all these recessed areas here. So just depends on which one you like to use. This one I think looks a little bit more subtle. This one's a little bit more bold, but I kind of like the way that looks. You could also, you know, rub another color on the top, but I think I'm just going to leave that way. And I'm going to use some of these Floristy dies, which I already cut out here. I cut them out of white cardstock, and then I had some inked panels. I do this all the time, where I just randomly take some mixed media heavy stock paper and, you know, spray it, in this case, with some shades of yellow and some mica yellow as well. And then I just die cut the centers out. The same thing with this green. This is all just shades of green. And I just have these on hand just so that I can easily cut things out and not have to ink individual pieces of paper. So I'm going to take this dark purple and I'm going to matte this. And I think what I'm going to do with these is I like the way that the white, the yellow, and the green look with the purple. And I'm just going to arrange these on here, just like daisies. And then I cut all these little leaves as well. And I'm just going to arrange this just to make it look like some wildflowers in a field. And that'll just be a nice simple card. Maybe I'll pop some of these up with some pop dots, but nothing too elaborate. You can see how easy it makes it to have all those pre-inked sheets ready to go. And then you can just cut them. I'll put some kind of sentiment on there probably as well. And I'll show those at the end. For my next technique, I'm going to take this Vault Lace embossing folder and I'm going to apply ink directly onto the front. Now the front is where you see the Tim Holtz Sizzix logo in the corner. That's what I consider the top or the front. And so I'm just going to ink the inside here. You can ink either side and it'll just change the way it looks, but I can show you that as well. So I'm going to start with the lightest color, which is Scattered Straw. And then I'm going to apply the Saltwater Taffy. Next I'm going to apply the Saltwater Taffy. If you don't want to drag them, you can always just kind of pounce them too. And then the last one is Salvage Patina. Just going to flip it so it's a little bit easier for me to ink. Okay. I'm just going to use a brayer to kind of smooth out the ink colors and blend them a little bit better. So I have two brayers, this large one from Speedball, but it doesn't have to be this one. I'm just going over a little bit. And then on the other side with the Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer, I'm just going just a little bit. And I don't want to remove a bunch of the ink. I just trying to get those edges to blend. So since I put the yellow in the middle and the Saltwater Taffy on one side and the Salvage Patina on the other, the yellow will blend a little bit, but those colors should blend nicely together and not make mud. And then I have some paper here that I cut to fit. I want to try to get it in the middle of this. And then I'm going to run this through the Big Shot, and I'll be right back to show you the result. And here's the result. It's a little bit more faded than I really wanted. I think the Salvage Patina looks good, but I feel like the yellow is not really showing up. So I could rerun this again. I could apply more ink to my embossing folder, which is this way, and just be sure you're lining the proper colors when you put that back. But I think I'm going to do that. I feel like this, the yellow and the Saltwater Taffy are a little bit faint. So I should start with the yellow again, the Salvage, the Scattered Straw. Keep saying Salvage. So okay, and it's easy to lock it in. You can kind of feel where it fits. Just be sure to carefully do this. I'm going to close this carefully again, and I'll run this through and I'll be right back. So you can see the color is much better now. You can see the yellow and the peach color. I think that looks really good. So I'm going to leave that like that, and I'm going to show you what happens if we ink up the other side. Starting with yellow again. The bottom here. Okay, I'm going to line up the paper this way this time. And I'll run this through and I'll be right back. Now this time it's a little bit different because the color was pushed into the opposite area. As you can see here, the green is pushed into the petals, whereas the white is now popping up. So you can see the two different ways of doing this. The ink, for whatever reason, came out darker on this side, and it kind of looks better than this side. That's interesting. Oh, you know what it must be? It must be because there's so much more area on this side. There's more raised areas on here for the ink to grab onto, and that's why it probably was able to grab onto more. Yeah, that's got to be the reason. Because these areas are already recessed. It's really getting just the outline. That's interesting. So these are the two different ways you can apply the ink. The other thing you could do is just apply it after you've embossed it if you want to just get some of those areas on top. And that would give another look to this. It's really pretty though. Either way, I kind of like this for this type of embossing folder just because it looks like lace and it is a little bit more delicate. This one's a little bit more modern, I think, with the colors. Maybe if I had used something a little bit more subdued. Either way, I'm just going to go ahead and rinse this off to get the ink off and be sure it's all clean. For my last card that I'm going to show you how I make, I'm using this background that had the vellum over the colored ink blended cardstock that I did. I cut some flowers from this older set called Wildflowers Stems #1. I have quite a few of these sets. There's a few different variations of this wildflower, and I think that there's a vault set as well. But anyway, I have a bunch of them because I think they come in handy. Just, cut them out and put them on a piece of paper like this. You don't really need much more than this. So I'm going to glue this down. I cut the one that looks like a dandelion once, and then this one that just is a big branch with leaves, I cut twice, but I just trimmed it down a little bit off the bottom. It was very long, and there were a few too many leaves too, and I didn't really need all those leaves. So I'm just going to put some glue just in a couple spots. I don't really need too much. I kind of like how it looks when it's not all stuck down flat, because it gives it a little bit more dimension without having to, use pop dots or cut it multiple times. So just going to do this. Just want it like this. So just put this one down next. Oops. This one I cut much shorter and took off a bunch of the leaves because it didn't look good with way too many leaves on it. Just got a little heavy at the bottom. So this one I'm just gonna kind of put lower here. And just kind of be sure that's okay. I might need a little bit more glue in that one. I don't want it to fall off. Okay. So I have this sentiment here, and it's from the same tiny text stamp, and it just says, "Own your dreams." I stamped it in picked raspberry and then just use a trimmer to cut it out. And I'm going to place it like this, but I want it to pop up a little bit, so I'm going to use some pop dots for that. Leave some space just in the middle where there's no pop dot. I don't think you need too much for this because the background's so pretty that I wouldn't want to put too much on the front. So I think this is good. So that's my last card. I will photograph all the cards, and I'll put the pictures also on my blog, which is susanbcards.blogspot.com. These are the 3 cards that I ended up making today. The one with the daisies, the vellum card with the stems, and this one is the 3 colors on the embossing folder. And I ended up cutting out the Hippity Hop rabbit. This is a vault release also, and it came with the alphabet. I have more cards to show. I'm going to try to make a second part video using these embossing folders. The video was already so long, I didn't want to, take up an hour showing different cards. So I'll come back and release another video soon. This one is the Airmail embossing folder, and this one is too. This one is the gel plate embossing folder technique that I used, and then I just put this TV die on here. And this one is a technique I've done before, and I want it to look like a ceramic tile. It has a lot of clear embossing powder on top, and then I cut some more stems. Thanks to scrapbook.com for sending me the 3 embossing folders I used today. The products that I use can be found on their website, and I will put a link in my description and also my blog with direct links to the products that I used. So I hope you found this useful, and hopefully I'll see you soon in a second video when I get that edited. I hope you enjoyed seeing these techniques and like the products on my cards. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.